Welcome to Chasing Balata, the podcast where golf meets real life. From shanks and slices to bad breaks on and off the course, we're keeping it light, loose, and just a little out of bounds. Hosted by Jason Frazier. It's time to grab your clubs, your coffee, and maybe your sanity, because it's time to chase that balata.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back. And it seems like it's been forever since we talked last. It's been a couple weeks. So I hope everybody's doing well. I didn't record an episode last week because I had that golf tournament. I normally record on Wednesdays. But since my tournament was on Wednesday, I just opted for no episode last week. But we had a tournament up in Williamsburg at the Golden Horseshoe on the green course. And I'm going to dive in that a little bit later. So since I didn't record, we've got some catching up to do. And I've decided on some segments that we're going to roll with moving forward. And this first one's called Coffee and Catching Up because I like to have my coffee and I like to give you guys a rundown of my previous week. As you can see, I'm drinking out of my Chiefs mug this week because I do whatever I want, even though I went to the dark side. But like I said, it's been a pretty uneventful couple of weeks. This past Friday night, my wife and she made reservations at this Brazilian steakhouse over in Virginia Beach. And holy shit, did we eat so much food. If you're not familiar with the Brazilian steakhouse, it's one of those deals where they bring the meat to the table and slice it off on your plate. And it's just all kinds of different meats. I think we both got the, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's basically like an all-you-can-eat of everything they've got. And in the end, I think we ended up having like 10 different meats from all these different servers, and they were just so good. And I've been to Brazilian steakhouses before, but I had never been to one where it has like a buffet of all the sides. So you can just plate up all the sides that you want and take them back to your table. And then they just dump the meat on top of that. And so it's a free-for-all. It's a free-for-all to see how disgusting you can make yourself feel. Like your goal is the meat sweats. Did you leave a Brazilian steakhouse with the meat sweats? If you did, that is awesome. Job well done. If you didn't, that's a lot of money to not have the meat sweats because it's not cheap. It's quite expensive, but it's worth it. And then just to show how impressive we can be, after we ate all of that food, my wife convinced me that there's always room for dessert. And so I ended up ordering the chocolate molten lava cake, the one with the vanilla ice cream on top. And she got the key lime pie. And we devoured that, no prisoners. So it was fantastic. But we were full. I think we came home and went right to bed. But, by the time we got home, it was after like 9 o'clock, and we're hard chargers. We like to be in bed. We go to bed early. Are we the cool people? Are we the uncool people? Personally, hey, here's one for us older folks. Especially in the summertime. Not now because it gets dark at like 5:30. But in the summertime, do you kind of enjoy it when you get to bed before the sun has gone down completely? I do. I 100% do. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think it is fantastic when you're stretched out in bed watching a show and the sun is still setting. I could be alone on that. I don't know. But I think we get a kick out of it. So, and then the weather here has just been so unbelievably nice this past week or so that we decided to play golf Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was pretty much blue sky, had some clouds here and there. It was probably like 60, 65 degrees. I mean, it was just great weather. It wasn't too windy. Sunday was blue sky, like 70 degrees, but it was super windy, like very windy. And that made for some challenging golf. But, Saturday's round was okay. I had a pretty decent warm-up. And I ended up shooting 42, which, not bad, not bad. Again, I'm a 6 handicap, so 42 isn't the end of the world. I made some mental errors. Sunday's round was a weird one. And it was weird because we got to the course, I was warming up on the range, and it was like I never held a golf club. I was slicing everything. And I don't just mean like playing a nice little fade kind of a slice. I mean, I was starting it right, slicing it even more. Every club, every single club. I usually always warm up the same, right? I start with my sand wedge, work my way up to my approach wedge, 7-iron, 4-iron. And then depending on how I feel like I'm going to be doing that day, like with the wind, I'll either go to my 7-wood driver or 3-wood driver. Because if it's really windy, I usually keep the 7-wood in the bag. But anyways, I couldn't do anything right. I could not do anything right. I mean, like banana slices. And I just remember, I looked at my wife and I was like, man, it is going to be a long day out there. But, we got over to the first tee. I stepped up and I striped a nice little butter cut right down the middle of the fairway, and we were off. And I actually ended up playing pretty well. I shot 39 with 2 birdies. And one of those was a tap-in birdie on a par 5 third hole. And that's always nice, right? Because that means you had an eagle putt. But I decided on Saturday that my goal moving forward until I did it was to try and cart around with no sixes. Which basically just means don't bogey the par 5s and don't get in trouble off the tee on par 4s. If I can do that, and I will obviously keep 3 putts to a minimum, but if I can get the ball in play on par 4s and just not bogey the par 5s, it's a very doable goal. And at my level, at my skill level of a 6 handicap, I think it's a reasonable goal, right? I'm not going to be like, all right, no bogeys today, because that's just not realistic. Yeah, I've done that. I've gone out and parred 9 straight holes, or maybe birdie bogey here and there and ended up even par 1 over. But to say, all right, today's the day. Today's the day I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot par. It's just not realistic at my skill level. But saying that I don't want to cart any 6s is very realistic. Because like I said, it's really just boils down for the most part to don't bogey the par 5s. Saturday, that came to a screeching halt on the 3rd hole when I bogeyed the 3rd hole. I had a great drive, bombed my drive actually, tried to lay up with a 7-iron and pulled it into a bunker. And from there, the bunker shot was probably 65 yards, and that's a no-gooder. That's just like the worst distance from a bunker that you can probably think of. And I ended up chunking it short, came up just short of the green, chipped on, and I had a look at par, but I missed it. So that was short-lived. Sunday, I started well. I birdied the 3rd hole, made it all the way around to the 8th hole, and I had about a 20-foot downhill putt just in the fringe and just hammered it. And I told myself before I hit it, I'm like, this is downhill all the way. Watch your speed. And then I proceeded to just murder the ball. And I ended up with like 8 feet coming back to the hole and pulled it left for par. So that was a tap-in bogey. So I made it 8 holes. And then I bogeyed 9 to finish out the round for the 39. But, like I said, I think setting those kind of realistic goals for yourself before you tee off, I think is a great way to keep yourself focused. And again, it's very realistic. It's not like I'm asking something that I can't of myself that I can't do. So I'm 0 for 2, not off to the start I was wanting, but I'll get there. We're going to figure it out, and hopefully this weekend I knock it out. All right. So this next segment, I've decided to call this next segment, Check This Shit Out. And for this week's edition, we're going to start with something that happened to me. The most ridiculous thing that you can probably think of happened. So we wake up Sunday morning, and you do, I think, what most of us do. You wake up, you have your coffee, you do your doom scrolling, and somebody had posted on the neighborhood Facebook page that to be on the lookout for this woman in a hooded sweatshirt and a purse. She had broken in to one of his vehicles and stole his wife's wallet. Now, it's not the first time that's happened in this neighborhood. It's been a while since we've heard anything about it, but you know. So my wife and I go out to go food shopping before we go to the golf course, and we're coming out of Publix. I open the back door to my truck, and I immediately look at her, and I'm like, where are my golf shoes? Because I have 2 pairs of golf shoes. And I normally just leave them both in the floor in the back seat of my truck. And we're looking in there. My golf shoes are gone. My son, my youngest son, he had just recently swapped out his wallet. He had this brown leather wallet. I gave him a new wallet. Well, that old empty wallet was in the passenger side door where he had it. It was laying in the back seat, the floor of the back seat, splayed open, like somebody had gone through it. So whoever that woman was that broke into that dude's car apparently got into my truck, and she didn't steal the dash cam. She didn't steal my Smith sunglasses that are like $200 a pair. She didn't steal my wife's Ray-Bans. I had a watch in the center console, not an expensive watch, but a watch. She didn't take any of that. This bitch stole both pairs of my golf shoes. Used golf shoes. Unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable. Like, I mean, no, obviously there was no signs of forced entry, so I must have left my truck unlocked. Bad on me. I'll take the hit on that. But if you're going to break into somebody's vehicle or go through somebody's vehicle and commit a crime, why not just make it worth your time? Right? Raid the shit out of it. Take everything. They didn't do that. They stole my golf shoes. I wish they'd at least left 1 pair. But, again, bad on me. 1, I guess I left my truck unlocked, so I got to take the hit on that. 2, why do I have both pairs of my golf shoes in my truck? Yeah, that's an argument that can be made. I do it out of convenience because, you never know when you're going to have to defend your honor. Now, one thing I do not do normally, I'm guilty of it sometimes, but I normally don't leave my golf clubs in the truck. And I'm really, really glad that we did not leave both sets, mine and Joy's, in there from the day before, because that would have been bad. It would have been bad to wake up and not have any golf clubs. So, but it's just, dumb luck, one of those things. I cannot believe that bitch would steal just my golf shoes. I'm more insulted that she just stole the golf shoes than had she went through and just robbed me blind. So, whatever, man, I didn't even call the police, file a report. It's 2 pairs of golf shoes. It's frustrating, but I think they knew, one, the guy had camera footage, so she's on tape, and she'd already tried to use the credit cards like that morning that she got. So I'm pretty sure the police know who they are, and hopefully they get her. But just, that's this week's segment of Check This Shit Out. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Now it's time for another brand new segment. I'm pretty excited about this one. We're past the golf shoes. We're moving on. Hopefully next week's Check This Shit Out does not pertain to me or anybody in my family. Hopefully it's some stupid news story. But anyways, we are balls deep into the NFL season. And, the Birds are 9-2, trucking along. It's Dallas week. It's Dallas week. If you're a Cowboys fan or an Eagles fan, you know what a big week this is. This is our second meeting of the year. We opened the season against them. And truth be told, all right, I'm not that Eagles fan, okay? I will readily admit that Dallas offense is probably the best in football. Dak Prescott is playing MVP caliber football right now. Not to mention he's got Pickens and CeeDee Lamb to throw the football to. And, if CeeDee Lamb doesn't drop that football in week 1, maybe we don't win that game. But he did, and we won. So there's that. So this is our second and final meeting of the season, hopefully, because it doesn't matter how good or bad Dallas or Philly are. Both times a year that we play, I just stress out because nobody wants to lose to Dallas, because then you have to listen to Dallas fans. And Dallas fans, they rank right up there with Yankee fans. And what I mean by that is they live in the past. All they talk about are the championships they won in the past. Well, the last time I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, any Dallas fans that might see this, but the last time I checked, if you want to rewatch the last Super Bowl victory that you guys have, I would need a VCR. Does that sound right? Sounds right to me. 96? Is it 96? I believe it's 96, right? You guys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers? Yeah. So, but anyways, it's Dallas week, and we'll get to that pick here in just a second. But I've decided for the remainder of the year during football season, we're going to do NFL weekly pick'ems. Take these for what they're worth. These are my picks. Do not bet any money on these picks because I said this teams are going to win. Don't do that. One, because I'm just going off the cuff here of what I think. I've not put any thought, well, basic thought, but like I didn't look at odds, injury reports, nothing. These are just what I feel. So I'm asking you to not base any monetary value wagers off of what I say. Now, having said that, we'll start with the Thursday night game. I've got Buffalo over Houston. At Houston. So it's an away game for the Bills. But dude, Josh Allen. Now, I mentioned Dak Prescott being MVP caliber. Josh Allen. Last week, 3 throwing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, ridiculous. The dude is a machine. So I got the Bills at Houston with the Bills winning that one. The Sunday games. To my dad and my brother Ryan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't think the Steelers are going to pull it out at Chicago. I got the Bears over the Steelers. The Bears have I know I said I didn't research, but I was listening to Get Up earlier on ESPN, and the Bears currently have the 4th ranked offense in the NFL, which is insane. They've turned things around up there. Big shout out to their coaching staff because it's the same talent, but a new coach. So there you go. But I got Chicago over Pittsburgh. Again, Dad, my brother, Ryan, I'm sorry. New England, again, same talent, new head coach. New England's one of the best teams in football this year without Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. And when's the last time you could say that? But I got New England over Cincinnati. TOD and Chumbers, sorry, man. Cincinnati's defense is horrendous. Horrendous. It's about as bad as Dallas's defense. Might be even worse. So I got the Patriots over Cincinnati. Let's see. We got the Giants at Detroit. I got Detroit winning that one. That would be a little bit more difficult of a pick if Scatterboo wasn't hurt. And I don't know what's going on with Jackson Dart or Russell Wilson. I think Jameis Winston played last week, so, whatever. Now, that dude's been known to pull out some games. I'll give Jameis Winston that, but I just don't see them going into Detroit against Detroit's defense and doing anything with that. So, Detroit over the Giants. Minnesota at Green Bay. Two great, strong teams, but I don't see Green Bay losing at home to Minnesota. Jordan Love had a good game last week. Of course, their defense is ridiculous with Micah Parsons. And he's a game changer by himself. So I got the Packers over the Vikings. Seattle at Tennessee. That Seattle game last week against the Rams, 4 interceptions. That's a fluke. I wouldn't read too much into that if you're a Seattle fan. They're a great football team, and I don't think they're going to have any issue at all against Tennessee. So here was the one it took me a minute to decide on. This is the only game I struggled picking. Indianapolis Colts at the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I made it readily apparent in my last podcast that I am not a fan of the Chiefs. I like to talk shit on the Chiefs, but I also made it a point to mention that if they sucked, nobody would talk about them. But the Chiefs don't suck. Don't let their 5-5 record fool you. They are one game away from just getting completely hot and becoming the best team in the AFC again. As much as that pains me to say, do not let the 5-5 record of the Chiefs fool you at all. Now, Indianapolis is having a ridiculous year. Danny Dimes, turns out he didn't belong in New York. He belonged in Indianapolis. However, if they were playing at Indianapolis, I would pick the Colts. Sorry, Chappie, but not this week, man. They're at Arrowhead. They're in that loud stadium. They're going up against Mahomes and Kelsey and those guys. I just don't see the Chiefs losing this game. Now, would I be okay if I lost this pick and the Colts won? Of course I would, but I don't see it happening. Let's see. We got the Jets at Baltimore. I mean, come on. The Jets are hot garbage. Hot garbage. I think Tyrod Taylor's starting this week in place of Justin Fields. So, it's just a mess up there. I got Baltimore winning that one. Cleveland at Las Vegas. You saw how awful Las Vegas looked against the Dallas Cowboys defense the other night. I can't imagine they're going to look any better against a much more talented and better Cleveland Browns defense. And you know what? If Cleveland had an offense, they'd be one of the best teams in football because their defense is pretty stout. Their defense keeps them in these games. And, the games they win, they really win on defense. So I think the Browns are going to go into Vegas and just throttle the Raiders. Jacksonville at Arizona. I got Jacksonville winning that one. I don't see them going in there. I don't know if Kyler Murray's back for Arizona, but I don't think it really matters. I'm going to skip the Eagles game real quick. Atlanta at New Orleans. Ugh. I mean, I'm going to pick New Orleans because it's at New Orleans. And sometimes they just pull shit out of their ass. But, it's not a good year for the Saints. Personally, I know teams say they don't bomb out to try and get the first pick, but the Saints should probably be doing that. This is a great matchup. Tampa Bay at the Los Angeles Rams. That's going to be a shootout. I mean, you got Baker Mayfield going up against Matt Stafford, two of the best quarterbacks in football. That's going to be a fun game to watch, and that's the Sunday night game. So I will be watching that game just out of, pure fandom. Again, like I said earlier about Dallas, if we don't block that field goal against the Rams, maybe we don't win. But I got the Rams going over Tampa Bay. And it's probably going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a very, very high scoring game. I don't think it's going to be a defensive battle at all. The Monday night game, Carolina at San Francisco. I got Carolina over San Francisco. I personally don't think San Francisco is having a very good year. I haven't really been paying much attention to them. They're one of those West Coast teams that gets kind of lost in the sauce for me. But I don't think Carolina's going to have any issues with that. Now, I apologize if you hear my dogs barking. My daughter just got home from school. But hang on a second here. Sorry, I was yelling at my dog. Hey, I told you in the first episode we are going to keep it raw, right? That's raw. My dog's, he barks all the time for no reason. So, all right, finally, back to Philadelphia at Dallas. Obviously, I've got Philadelphia winning. On paper, they are the better team. On both sides of the football. Yes, again, Dak's having an MVP caliber year. They've got a high-powered, high-scoring offense. I'm not taking that away from them. But talent-wise, they match up. I feel like they match up. The only advantage I would give the Eagles is, well, normally I would say their offensive line, but now Lane Johnson's out for the rest of the regular season. So they don't have a Saquon Barkley. And yeah, he hasn't had the year that he had last year. But if you've noticed the past few weeks, he's starting to break a little bit more runs. I think it's only a matter of time. So defensively, Dallas isn't even in the same league. Their defense is hot garbage. And honestly, they would damn near not have any wins this year if their offense didn't score 5,000 points a game. So, long story short, Eagles over Dallas at Dallas for the season sweep. Take it to the bank. That's your NFL Weekly Pick'ems. All right, now we're going to talk about the Internet Invitational a little bit. I hit on it in the last episode, but it wrapped up last Thursday. And if you guys haven't watched that yet, and you enjoy tournament golf or YouTube golf or whatever, I highly encourage you to watch this tournament. It's broken up into like 6 episodes or something like that. And the finale was last Thursday. They played for $1 million. Actually, it ended up being maybe like $1.7 million or something like that. But it was so good. It was so good. They got down to 2 teams of 3. Brad Dahlke from Good, Cody Beef Frank. They call him Beef because he was kind of a large individual, but seemed like the nicest guy in the world. And a Barstool personality called Francis against Paige Sporonic, who's a golf influencer, another guy from Good named Melosi, and another Barstool personality named Frankie. So it was 18 holes, alternate shot, spoiler alerts here. But it was just the way they did it, the way they set it up to be played, the skill level. Well, first let me say, Brad Dahlke, if you don't know who that is, like I said, he's part of the Good team. The guy's like a +8 handicap. I mean, skill level wise, he could easily be on the PGA Tour. Mentally, I'm not sure. That's a whole other type of golf those guys play. But, I mean, this is a guy who finished runner-up in the U.S. Amateur and played in the Masters in like 2017 or something like that. So, very, very highly skilled golfer. Easily the best golfer on YouTube, without a doubt. I mean, yes, I know that Mickelson and DeChambeau and those guys have YouTube channels now, but take professional golfers out of the mix. I don't think there's a better golfer on the planet than Brad Dahlke. So, but they did the 18-hole alternate shot, and it was awesome. I mean, it came down, it was all square. They just kept going back and forth, right? Malosi's team would win a hole, Dahlke's team would win a hole. I think the most anybody was up was at one point Dahlke's team was up 2 holes, but Malosi's team came back. There were some cheating allegations, a little bit of scandal going on about Paige Spironic stamping down some grass to give the ball a better path out of some weeds, and she did do that. It's on camera, and that's a no-no. You are absolutely not allowed to do that. And they made the argument, and even everybody else made the same argument, that in a normal round of golf in YouTube world, whatever, they're playing a scramble or alternate shot, somebody improves their lie a little bit, nobody gives a shit. But that's not what's happening. They're playing for $1 million, and there's life-changing money on the line, and rules are rules. So was it malicious? I mean, I don't think so. Like, she didn't improve the actual lie of the ball, but she did break a rule. Now, they could have easily been told that the match was over, but that's not how you want to end that. So they kept going. They ended up losing that hole anyway, so it was a non-issue. Then word was filtering around back to Dave Portnoy, the guy that owns Barstool Sports, that Malosi possibly was using the slope on his rangefinder, which Dave Portnoy made very clear on day one. First tee, day one, you are not allowed to use your slope. Now, this is where it could have cost him the match, because if he was using his slope, then that meant he was probably using his slope for the previous. This happened on the 10th hole. That meant he was probably using his slope for the previous 9 holes. So they would have lost. They would have had to have forfeit all those holes, and they would have been down, 9 holes going into the 10th hole, which it's over. It's over at that point. But Dave decided he was going to go check all the rangefinders, and this is why it became such a big deal, because all the carts have cameras on them, right? They put these GoPros in them or whatever, so they're cart cams. And Malosi it was a magnetic rangefinder. You had it on the back of his cart back here, and it shows him grab it. Like, if this is the rangefinder, his slope button's right here. It shows him grab it, look at it, and has his thumb exactly where the slope switch is. And then he looks at it and he sets it down. Now, is that 100% definitive proof that he was cheating, he had a slope on? No, it's not. Does it look bad? Yes, it 100% looks like he turns his slope off. Even his own people on the good team in that organization were calling him out and telling him how bad it looked and to just be honest about it. And, this went on for 3 or 4 holes. They were watching footage. They were going back. Portnoy sees the same footage I was just describing. They all agree that it looks horrible and that it looks like he turned his slope off, but it's not definitive. So at the end of the day, like on the 14th hole, he pulls Malosi aside, asks him straight up. Malosi swears to God, I didn't have my slope on, and that's the end of it, and they move on. So the match keeps going back and forth, back and forth. It comes down to the 18th hole, and Dahlke's team ends up winning. How it ended is insane, and I don't want to spoil that. So if you haven't already seen it, go watch it. Yeah, I just told you Dahlke's team wins, but how they win, well, it's pretty bad. So go watch that. But here's the cool thing about it. And this is why I think it's this is why I think YouTube golf is such a great thing. So Beef, his name's Cody Frank. They called him Beef because he was a large guy. He passed away recently, probably 3 weeks ago, unexpectedly. I think he was like 31 years old. It's very cool now that they have all this footage of him at this tournament because he hit the very first tee shot. So he hit the very first shot of the tournament, and he hit the very last shot of the tournament when he chipped the ball onto the green. And then he ended up winning, being part of the winning team. And that was back in August. So then he unfortunately passes away right at the end of October, beginning of November. And so it's very cool that they have all this footage of him. His family's able to see it, you know, because, again, he seemed like the most genuinely nice guy. Obviously, I didn't know him. But it's unfortunate. You don't ever want to see that happen to anybody. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. They still haven't said what happened to him, why he passed away from a sudden medical issue. His family, I don't think, is going to release why. It's probably due to the size and his weight. But I don't want to speculate. That's just my opinion. But it's very cool that, you know, they ended up winning and he got to walk away and people get to see that. And his family gets to go back and they can look at that forever. And I think that's very cool. All right. So we're going to wrap up today's episode with some talk about tournament golf at our level, local amateur tournaments. First, though, I meant to clarify last segment. Some of you might not know what slope is. So for rangefinders, some rangefinders have a slope function, which just basically means it will change the yardage depending on the elevation. So, you know, if you're standing on a tee box of a par 3 and the green is downhill, and say a normal rangefinder without slope is going to tell you it's 160 yards. A rangefinder with a slope is going to tell you it's 160 yards, but then underneath it, it's going to give you another yardage that might say 152 or 150 or even 145, right? Depending on the severity of the downhill or uphill, whatever. So it gives you an advantage on club selection. You know, if my rangefinder says 160 and your rangefinder says 161 playing like 145, you know what club to pull, and I might hit too much club. So that's why it's a big deal, and that's why they made a big deal out of it when they were suspected of using their slope, because it would give them a huge advantage on some of those holes, because they're out of Paynes Valley in Missouri, and Paynes Valley has a lot of elevation changes. More than one of their par 3s, the green is well below the tee box. So that's what slope is in a nutshell. But anyways, so yeah, I didn't do the episode last week because I played in that tournament up at the Golden Horseshoe green course in Williamsburg. And I get more and more frustrated with these tournaments every single time I play in them, right? For several reasons. One, because I always seem to play like ass. Like, my game just disappears when I get into these tournaments. Because, again, a lot of golf is played between the ears, right? But it is frustrating when you're trying to play a round of golf, especially a tournament round, and the pace of play is just almost non-existent. It's like a standstill. All right, and that's several reasons for that. Well, two that I can think of. One, the field in these tournaments is pretty spread out, right? Meaning there might be one or two scratch golfers in these tournaments. But for the most part, it's a wide range of handicaps, right? It could be anywhere. Like, I'm a 6. My buddy I was playing with is like a 10. We had another guy in our group that was an 8. There's people that are 20. But the problem is, a lot of these people, they act like they're playing in the final round of the U.S. Open. There's no need for that. Like, it shouldn't take you 45 seconds to a minute to try and figure out what club you're going to hit Then you have to take 17 practice swings only to chunk it or top it. Like, and I don't care. It's not the skill level, right? I don't care if you chunk it or top it or slice it out of bounds or hook it in the water. I don't care about that. But what I'm saying is you should have a pretty good idea of what your yardages are, what clubs you hit well, what clubs you don't hit well. So when you get to your ball, it should be minimal, right? Well, first of all, you should be playing ready golf. If your buddy's over here hitting, you should be over here at your ball figuring out what you're going to be hitting to keep the pace of play moving. But you get to your ball, right? What's the wind direction? What's my lie? Where's the flag? Where's the trouble? That's about the gist of it. I got a good lie. I'm in the fairway. The wind's kind of in my face. Maybe it's a club more. I'll need to club up. The pin's in the back of the green. I don't want to be long. Trouble on the right. There's water on the right. Okay, cool. I'm going to hit this club. And then you hit. Don't take all day. There's no need for that. We're not playing for real money. This isn't the PGA Tour. So stop acting like it. It's okay to take it serious. I'm not saying that. But it's not life or death. And it should not take you 60 seconds from the time you get out of your golf cart. It shouldn't take you 60 seconds to decide on a club and pull a club and hit your ball. It just shouldn't. Multiply that by 4 on every single shot, and that slows play down greatly. So that's one reason. Second reason is a lot of these tournaments do shotgun starts. Now, a shotgun start is where you divide up the groups on every hole. So somebody starts on 1, 2, 3, and so on until every group has a starting hole. So everybody starts at the same time. You just start on a different hole. We started on 10, which meant we finished on 9, right? And for like shits and giggles scrambles, charity scrambles, when you're playing scrambles with your buddy where you're having drinks and having a good time and you're playing best ball, that is the absolute best way to go about it, right? Because nobody's in a hurry. You're just out there to have fun, maybe have some drinks, whatever the case might be, see what kind of score you guys can shoot. But in tournament play, you have people that like to play quick. Now, I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about, in general, you have people that like to play fast or be able to get into a rhythm. And you cannot do that when you shotgun start a stroke play tournament and people who are relatively quick are stuck behind slow groups. Right? What should happen, and this is just my opinion, how I would expect it to be ran, is lower handicap golfers out front. Because in the grand scheme of things, better golfers do tend to play a little bit quicker. They just do. Put your lower handicaps out front, get those groups going, get your higher handicaps, maybe the older crowd, towards the back, right? And let play flow that way. Everybody off the first tee. I think personally it would flow a whole lot better. And I think you'd see more participation because a lot of people just get frustrated at the pace of play and they don't want to play in these tournaments. I got a buddy that lives up in DC who specifically didn't want to come all the way down here because he knew how incredibly slow it was going to be and he didn't want to deal with that. And I don't blame him. And I always say that I'm done, right? Like every time I'm like, this is my last tournament. But it never is. I always keep playing. And I do that for 2 reasons. One, I like competitive golf. even though that my game seems to disappear and I play like shit most of the time, I still love it. I love having that competitive juice and, the adrenaline of, you know, this 3-foot putt for par, or a long iron into a green with water on the left. You don't want to go in the water. You're playing with your buddies, whatever. You just grip it and rip it, so be it. But in a tournament, there's a little bit more on the line. And I love that feeling that you get when you play. Secondly, playing in these tournaments gets us on a lot of golf courses that we don't normally have access to. Right? So around here, Williamsburg, you have the Kings Mill Resort where they used to have the LPGA event. Colonial Heritage is private. Spring Creek up near Charlottesville is private. But these kinds of tournaments get you onto those courses, and at a way cheaper cost. So that's another big reason for playing in these. But then you get up there and you have to deal with that stuff, and you have to deal with that slow play. Like, I have a picture of me with my feet up on the cart on the tee box. I sent it to my wife, like, this is painful. And it was like that every single hole. We waited on every tee box. It was bad. And we eventually got through the round. Again, I played like absolute ass. I shot a 92. It was bad. It's not an overly hard course. I tried to film some holes, but filming during a tournament round is it's way too hard if you're filming yourself. Maybe if I had somebody filming me, that'd be a lot easier. But me trying to keep pace of play, because that's big, while setting up my tripod, doing this, doing that, it's just too much of a hassle. So I don't have any footage like I said I might have. I mean, I did record a couple holes, but it felt so rushed and whatever. I just got rid of it. But yeah, I ended up with a 92. And you know what, though? I will say part of that, not just pace of play, you can't blame it all on other people. I shot 92 because I committed the cardinal sin of tournament golf. I checked out. I mentally checked out. Probably after the 7th or 8th hole, it was just grueling trying to get into a rhythm. You couldn't do it. You might go 10, 15 minutes in between swinging a golf club. And so you always felt stiff. Now, once you started the hole, it kind of flowed, until you got to the green and putted out. And then you were right back to square one of waiting. So probably after the 7th, 8th hole, maybe the 9th hole, I just checked out. I mentally checked out. I didn't give a shit. I did what I talked about not doing a couple weeks ago. I just said, you know what, this round's kind of out the door, so I'm just going to hit driver every hole and see what happens. And some results were good, some results were not so good. But at the end of the day, we did get to play a nice course. I do have one complaint, and I know they had to have gotten beat up for this. But the 9th hole at the Golden Horseshoe at the green course, the 9th hole is a par 3. And I think it was playing, like 150, 152, 153. I don't remember. It was a 9-iron. I remember it was a 9-iron. And the green, the flag was on the back middle of the green, right on a slope. To the point where, because we started on 10, we were finishing on 9, so we were the last group to play 9. People that were already done and were driving back to the clubhouse were coming around 9T, and they were all laughing. And they're like, haha, wait till you guys get down to the green and try and putt that. And we're like, what? Guys were driving by telling us they 4 and 5 putted on this hole. And so we were watching the group in front of us, and we could see if you were down below the hole putting up the hill, if you did not get the ball to the hole, it literally rolled all the way back down to you and maybe even past you, depending on how much steam it had on it. I mean, that is bullshit of the highest level. When you're setting pins for a tournament, you don't do that. You do not do that. You do not put the pin on a slope. It was absolute bullshit. My buddy that I was playing with hit a really good tee shot. I think he had I can't remember, 8 feet, 10 feet for birdie, and I think he ended up bogeying the hole because his first putt went by and went all the way down the hill. Just absolute hot garbage. I think I actually have a video of it that I took. I might throw it into this podcast if I can find it so you can see it while I'm talking about it here. But that is just so unbelievably unprofessional by the green course. And I hope the VSGA complained, and I hope that the tournament participants complained, because I know it train wrecked some good scores. I was left of the green, chipped on. Of course, it ran past the hole and down the hill. I was lucky enough to hit my first putt up the hill to where it stopped about 2 feet past the hole and stayed. And I got even more lucky by making that putt and walking away with a bogey. Or was it a double bogey? I can't remember. But either way, just absolute garbage. That's my only complaint from the course that day. Otherwise, it's a beautiful course. It's really beautiful in the fall. So if you ever get the chance to go up there and play it, I prefer that one to the Gold Course. The Gold Course is supposedly, and I've played the Gold Course, but it's supposedly one of the nicest courses in Virginia, this, that, and the other. I don't see what's so great about it. Yeah, it's a super nice course, but I like the green better, and I definitely don't think it's one of the nicest courses in Virginia. But that's just my opinion. But anyways, that's my take on tournament golf. Pace of play, awful. No need for that. Pick up the pace. Don't do shotgun starts, right? Start everybody off the first tee. Play always flows better when people just go off the first hole. It does. Then, if it does start to back up and slow up, you know specifically who to find and fix it. Because they always threaten you, well, not threaten you, but they always tell you, hey, if you don't see the group in front of you, you're behind. First time it's a warning, second time you're disqualified. Well, on a shotgun start, it's kind of hard to place blame. But if everybody goes off the first tee and 3 hours in, you've got a backup on the 8th hole, you know exactly who to go to. You know what group is causing it. So, again, that's my take. Maybe the VSGA will give me a job to just go around and marshal people and be a dick. I think I'd be pretty good at it. But, well, that's it for this week. Like I said, please like and subscribe, or like and follow, depending on where you get your podcast from. Please leave comments below of something you'd like to hear about, something you heard about you don't agree with, or something you just think I was dead wrong on. You know, like I said, I want all the critiques, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. And I think next week's episode, I've been thinking about it, and I think it might be time to introduce the dude. Now, for those of you out there that know who the dude is and have been following the dude for a long time, I'm sure that makes you very happy. If you don't know who the dude is, you're about to find out. He is a character. He is our youngest son. He's 17. He's a senior in high school now, but he's been duding for his whole life, and I'll talk about why. But I think it's time. Not 100% sure yet, but it might be time to bring him out and introduce him to the world. So we'll see. But anyways, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining. And as always, like, follow, subscribe, leave comments. That's how we grow. And until next week, see.